Welcome back to the news at 10. The Independent National Electoral Commission will for the first time publicly deploy the E-collation system in the September 10, 2016 governorship election in Edo State. Well, this was revealed by the INEC National Commissioner, Dr. Mohammed Lekki, in Benin City at an ICT capacity training for INEC staff in Benin. Now, he says that this will sanitize the electoral system and advise politicians and others to refrain from any plan to manipulate or disrupt the polls.
Seated in this hall are 192 staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission who are on information and communications technology training. Following the introduction of the smart card reader in the 2015 presidential election, INEC has gone steps further to introduce the E-collation system designed to collate the results from the polling units electronically, all in a bid to make the electoral process more credible. This training is to prepare the INEC staff for this process while handling the 192 wards in Edo State in the 2016 governorship election.
When you are doing the manual work of collating, at the ward level and go to the LGA level, we at the headquarters are remotely having the results already. In fact, we have tested this, we find that it works very well. And you can understand the advantages of doing that. I mean, it also brings about transparency. It's also a double check on issues in case where people may decide to hijack results in between 2 points, say from local government to state or between ward to local government, so that even any attempt for hoodlums to hijack those things will be futile because we already have the result being transmitted electronically.
The INEC commissioner says the commission will continue to build capacity as it intends to improve in the use of technology.
The amendment to the Electoral Act 2010-2015 now allows INEC to be the sole determinant of methods of election, particularly introduction of technology. So it's important that our staff are technology ready, technology compliant, so that the attitudes can be tested, so that they can be ready to develop themselves going forward from there.
Beneficiaries of this exercise will have the opportunity for further training via the INEC portal until the Edo 2016 election.
Well, the Independent National Electoral Commission is getting busy again with the conduct of rerun elections and the governorship election in Edo State. Recently, the Commission had come under fire for conducting elections that were inconclusive in Kogi and Bayelsa State. But the Commission is promising the nation something different, saying that the elections in Edo State coming up in about 2 months from now will be better conducted. Joining me now on the news at 10 to discuss all this is INEC's Director of Publicity and Voter Education, Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10 tonight.
Thank you.
The Commission has big plans this time around, saying things will be done differently. We've just seen something about E-collation. Is that the main thing you're going to do now that will improve the process?
No, certainly it's not the main thing that's been done. It's one of the critical areas that we have examined. There are several critical areas. Technology is one of those areas. We believe that with the introduction of more technology, the human intervention, the human disruption of the process will be less, or at least less effective. So that is one among several other things. We're not necessarily going to do things very differently. We're going to improve on the process. After every major electoral activity, we go back, we review things and see how we can best serve the Nigerian voter.
Beyond the technology, one of the major criticisms is the late arrival of voter material. So even if you have a computer doing it all, you still need human beings to get these things to the centers at the right time, yes, which is always an issue. So what are you going to do about that?
Well, I beg to disagree that it has always been an issue. In the past, yes, it was an issue that has dogged our elections. But if you look critically at most of the other elections we conducted recently, late arrival, late deployment of personnel and materials hasn't been a major area of criticism. On the contrary, the only place was in parts of River State where the officials were physically prevented from deploying, and in Imo State where they shut the INEC office, state office in Owerri, and they could not deploy to the wards and to local governments and to other areas. So that certainly in other places where there hasn't been any human intervention preventing the deployment, I think in Kogi it was 92% or thereabouts. Most stations open on time. So we hope to beat that record in Edo and in subsequent elections, but we can only do that if we get the necessary cooperation of the people, if the security is adequate, and if people will not go there to physically prevent our workers from going to the field.
Okay, speaking of Edo, we're looking at September, aren't we? Just to ask if you've received a list of likely candidates from the various political parties.
Yes, several parties have submitted names, and the process is still open till tomorrow. Tomorrow is the deadline, so we expect several more to bring in their list and particulars of their candidates by tomorrow.
Which brings me to the question of what you plan to do about the PDP, seeing as they had parallel primaries, yes. 2 names have come up. Who are you planning to recognize if it comes to that? It's a question everybody is interested in.
Yes, we don't plan to recognize, but we'll take it as it comes. We're aware of the several court orders and judgments that have been pronounced upon. So lawyers have looked at those judgments, and they haven't, as at close of work today, neither faction. There's only one party. There might be 2 different factions, but there's only one party recognized in law. So we will take a list if the party submits a list. But as to, I cannot speculate as to which of the factions is going to come up with a list by tomorrow. I cannot speculate on that, but we'll dealt with when they do submit the list tomorrow.
Seeing as you're part of this present constitution of INEC, what are you going to do to shed this toga of inconclusive elections? That is something that has come up since the new leadership came in, even though sometime in the past we did have that. So you talked about technology, you've talked about doing things quicker. What are you going to do to actually have a result, and then that's the end of it, rather than going for reruns, etc.?
Well, that's we have to look at certain fundamentals of the process and examine what are the reasons for inconclusive elections. And I don't know whether you read the interview with the statement by the outgoing U.S. Ambassador Entwistle. I think he sufficiently explained things. If people will do the right things, if people will go according to the rules, then that will not happen. But as long as the law remains that where certain things happen, if there's overvoting, for example, the law says you must not declare a result unless the election in that particular area will not affect the overall outcome of the election. So with the law as it is, there's nothing we can do. Secondly, if there is no human intervention, disruption of the process, not one single election has been declared inconclusive where there was no disruption by certain members of the political class who, for one reason or another, did not want the election to be concluded at the first try.
So would you say that this disruption is the biggest challenge that INEC has today? Is that what you're putting it down to, disruption?
There are several challenges. But
what's the biggest one you have right now?
I don't think one can identify one as the biggest challenge we have. Security is a challenge. Disruption of the process is a challenge. Non-obedience to regulations, guidelines are serious challenges.
All right. And just to bring you back to something that the Commission said recently, yes, that they will not conduct elections in areas where it is unsafe.
Yes.
Would you be able to keep to that? And how do you plan to go about it? Because you don't know if it's going to be unsafe, do you, until that day?
Well, sometimes there are indicators, there are indices of relative safety of particular communities, particular areas. And where there's been increased political tensions, where there has been violence, and it's foolhardy to send innocent Nigerians to go there, expose voters, officials, observers, media people towards violence, where there's a clear and present danger. And there's certain times that is predictable. Admittedly, sometimes it's spontaneous, and there isn't much you can do about that, apart from examining the security architecture and ensuring that you get certain assurances from the security agencies. And of course, it will be foolhardy for us to go if the security gathering intelligence apparatus tells us that it is difficult, or it will be very difficult for them to secure the electoral process. Then we certainly will be circumspect about heading to such areas.
So in a perfect situation, what would you like to see?
Well, perfect situation, we'd like to see a place where politics is played according to the rules, according to guidelines, according to code of conduct, which the candidates and which the political parties have subscribed to. So there'll be no need. We hope, and soon I hope, we'll get to a situation where that happens in several other developing democracies, even within Africa, where you will not have so many security forces on election day, where people just go about their normal business, cast their votes, and go about their normal business. There doesn't need to be a lockdown, a shutdown of the whole country because an election is going on. So that's truly is the ideal, that we just respect our democratic norms. All
right. Our next Director of Publicity and Voter Education, Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the News at 10 tonight. Let's switch gears now and take a look at some business news for the day. Here's Adeshawa Josh.
You first. First Bank.
Good evening. Welcome to Business News. The International Monetary Fund says Nigeria's economy will probably contract for the entire 2016 fiscal year. According to a Bloomberg report, the IMF's president, that's resident representative in Nigeria, Jean Leon, says while Africa's largest economy should look better in the current second half, the growth will probably not be sufficiently fast and rapid to offset the outcomes of the year's first 6 months. Leon says Nigeria must address power shortages, fuel and foreign exchange challenges, including forex restrictions on some imported items. Nigeria's economy narrowed 0.4% in the first quarter. In last April, the International Monetary Fund cuts Nigeria's 2016 growth forecast to 2.3%, while the World Bank last month lowered the country's growth forecast to 0.8%. The nation's stock market started the week in the red as investors continue to take profit off stocks, pushing the losses to a fifth session. Here's Bolaji Akinwale with more on today's trading analysis.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Equities transaction on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange opened the week on the negative note as the benchmark index shed 0.14%. Analysts attribute this to continuous profit-taking activities. Meanwhile, market volume closed at 75.3 million units of shares, valued at 3.4 billion naira and traded in 4,865 deals. Leading the pack of gainers is GT Bank with 4.35%. It came ahead of NEM Insurance and QTix with 3.96% and 3.03% each. On the flip side, Transcorp topped with 9.38%. It was followed by Skybank and Diamond Bank with 9.20% and 7.96%. Bank stocks dominated the volume chart. GT Bank, FBN Holdings and FCMB recorded the highest units of shares. And that's it in the Stock Market Report. I am Bolaji Akinwale.
Thanks a lot, Balaji. The monetary authorities have been advised to intensify their awareness campaign on the Naira-settled OTC/FX market. This advice is coming from the Chief Executive of EMSA Pharmaceuticals, Mrs. Stella Okoli. According to her, the new system has some disadvantages for manufacturers.
When you bid, you don't know whether you're going to get or not. In fact, what I now know is that you don't get. So I don't know what we are going to get. And whether it's future market, we need to understand that. You understand? But what is not nice, maybe to be corrected soon, is that manufacturers get a soft loan. It's called IFF. Import finance or stock replacement facility is a temporary loan. And we use it to go and buy the foreign exchange or the machinery or what we need. But now we are not allowed. We are told it's not in writing, but we're just told that we cannot use it to assess foreign exchange.
And major markets across the world hit new highs at the close of today's session as investors cheered an election in Japan and extended a job report rally. Here's a look at the numbers. And that's Business News tonight. The news at 10 continues in a moment. I'm Adeshewa Josh.
You first. First Bank.
Still ahead on the news at 10, jubilant fans troop out in Lisbon to celebrate Portugal's historic triumph at the European Championships in France. And that's on sports. Please stay with us.